Okay, so welcome back. I'm going to continue where I left off of working on this a basic workflow from Adobe Camera Raw into Photoshop. So when we left off, we had just finished the curves layer, and so now um, step step four in the non-destructive workflow would be just to add a color balance adjustment layer. So if I come down here and I'd go to color balance, this would just be a way for me to shift the color overall. So if I looked at this image and I was like, I wish it was just a little bit cooler. Well, then I could come down to the yellow blue slider and start shifting this onto the blue side, right? To make it a little bit cooler. Or conversely, if I wanted to make it a little bit warmer, um, and I could do that. Remember that this is affecting midtones by default, which is going to be the majority of the tonality, but you can also adjust changes to affect shadows and highlights if you'd like. So if you're feeling like the shadows have a color cast, maybe like for example down in here, in this part of the image, and you're feeling like the color cast of those shadows is a little bit blue, you could come to the shadows and you could try to change that and warm them up by taking away blue and adding in some yellow. And you can see that is warmer. If I turn this off, it's warmed it up, especially in this area. The thing to wonder is how is that going to affect everything? Of course, you'll just have to think about that because it's also affecting the water here because those are shadow areas too. So this is a great tool to adjust color casts to try to neutralize certain color casts that you're worried about, as well as create an overall look or feel that you're interested in. If you want to warm an image up, you could add a little bit of red, a little bit of yellow. It's going to do that, right? But you should probably do that with the midtones. And of course, nothing's happening because I did not put on my preview button. So, or I got to turn the layer back on and like, wow, okay, that has quite a dramatic effect. Actually, probably too strong of one. So I could dial this back a bit. Okay, so that there's a shift, but there's not too much of a shift. Okay. Now, another great thing to do in a workflow would be use a selective color adjustment. Now, sometimes you don't need this, but it's great to know that it even exists in Photoshop. And so it's called Selective Color. It's right down here at the very bottom. And Selective Color, what it does is it looks for, you have to choose which color palettes you want to change. Like, do you want to affect reds, yellows, greens, cyans, blues, magentas? It also has whites, neutrals, and blacks, which is the same thing as highlights, midtones, and shadows. Um, and then, for example, you can see like if we wanted to work with the cyans, let's see what we can do. We could increase, then we can come in and we have these other sliders. These are based on, instead of a red, green, blue type of default scale, it's using a CMYK. So we have cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So I can increase my cyan and see if it's going to have an effect. Now, sometimes if you don't have anything that's quote cyan, then it's not going to affect anything. Let's try yellows. So here, if we decrease our cyan a bunch, you can see that it's actually warming up some of these areas, like some of this wood area in here. If we go back, you can see that that's a little bit, so that I've like elevated that by taking out cyan because I'm adding red there. That's the opposite of cyan. But if I wanted to say like add yellow to it, I might be able to like intensify that more. So sometimes this can be really good. This isn't the best image but here's one, for example, like on this boat, there is a orange sticker. So if I wanted to kind of tone down that sticker, I might be able to come in here and click on reds and adjust this, okay, like by making things darker. The problem is sometimes selective color isn't as selective as we want it to be because you can see it's also affecting other parts of my image. Okay, so not the maybe not the best example of selective color, but it can be a really powerful tool to change things. This might be the best example is putting it to blues, and it's going to affect the water and the sky. So if I wanted to shift, say, the clouds and make them a bit more warmer, if I wanted to make them cooler, I could certainly do that, right, by adjusting this. Now, these are subtle, but there are some changes. So this is, and it's off. And this is the layer back on. And you can see I've added some blue in here. Now, there's one more thing that's actually really important for a non-destructive workflow to play around with, and that's called adding a dodge burn layer. And the reason we like dodge burn layers is because it allows us to add to darken areas and lighten areas selectively. For example, like if I wanted to uh, darken some of this area to kind of get even more contrast in there, or if I wanted to darken some of this in here just to make it a little bit more vignetted and so my eye doesn't go quite as strongly to it, I could do that. If I wanted to brighten up just a subsection in here, I could also do that. So the way to do that is you go to layer and you go to new and you go to say new layer, and I'm going to call it dodge burn. And then under mode, you need to change it from normal mode to overlay. And as soon as you do that, it gives you a special choice. It says a checkbox you want to check. It's going to fill it with neutral 50% gray color. And you're going to click OK. And what this really does is it makes a fill layer. And the fill layer is gray. But because the color mode of this layer is overlay and not normal, anything that is in this is a uniform um, color is not going to affect the area below it. So that's why when I turn this off and turn this on, nothing has happened right now. But now what I do is I come in with this layer selected. I come in and I'm going to use my brush tool, and I'm gonna show you how to use this first. I'll keep this. It's got 100% opacity brush. It's very important also that I change my foreground color to either be black or white, nothing in between. So to reset my foreground and background colors, I can click the um, little tiny squares up here, and that's going to change these back to black and white. And if I want to flip back and forth between white and black, I just click this bent arrow. Okay, so I'm going to start with black. So if I wanted to darken the sky a little bit up here, I can do that. See? Ooh. Now, interesting, right? Say interesting, Stefan, but that's really obvious what you did. And so I'm not looking for something to be quite so obvious. And I say, you are correct. So what you need to do is use a very low opacity to your brush. So instead of 100%, you want to use something from 3 to 5, something like that. The idea is that you're going to slowly build up some of this darkness here. You also want the hardness of your brush to be down to 0. You want it to be really fuzzy because it's going to blend better. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger just for this area. And I'm going to click and I'm going to move around. And I'm going to try to like darken this area down a little bit so I can see some more of the character of this cloud. And the change is happening so slow that you almost don't see anything happening. But if you come over here and look at my dodge burn layer, I can actually show you that I have been darkening in that area, right? And if I turn the whole layer off, now you can see, oh yeah, he did do something. He did make it a little bit more intense, okay? And so that's my dodge burn layer. So I could also maybe come down in here and I might darken the edge of this sand just a little bit. It's really subtle, kind of change you're not going to notice, but it is there. You can see that's off and that's on. It's just a little bit darker in there. Pulls that down. If I wanted to brighten, say, some of this water or some of this top sky because I felt like it was too dark, then I need to switch over to white. And then I could come in here and I could brighten this area a little bit. Okay, I could just selectively brighten as I thought I liked. And now you can see over there, this part is actually getting brighter over time. Okay, and so you can flip back and forth um, as you like, darken certain areas. Maybe I'll darken some of these water highlights just a little bit. One of the things you'll notice as this is happening is that really, really white areas are not going to be very impacted, if at all, by this. So if you have if it's 255, like this area here, you notice I've darkened the sky, but the white itself, like in that point, it really didn't change. It's basically still the same color that it was. It's just the darker clouds around is what darkened. Now, this can be an advantage in this scenario. In another scenario, you may wish you could darken a sky that was just pure white. How do I make it not pure white? Well, that's for another day. I definitely would love to show you that. It's a pretty simple process, but it's not part of this basic non-destructive workflow. So this is it. Starting out Adobe Camera Raw, making your changes, opening it up as a smart object, adding your black and white midpoints so you know how those points are being affected by all of your different changes, right? You can keep by the numbers. Very helpful when we're going to end up being printing. Um, then a basic curves layer, okay? Making an S curve, also using this little hand icon to make directly change the curve based on the different areas that you want to select in the image. Then the color balance adjustment layer, the selective color adjustment layer, and last but not least is the dodge burn layer. We always really want to put the dodge burn layer up at the top too, so that one, that we can see everything that all the other adjustment layers have done, and then we can add, brighten or darken based on that. So it's kind of a last step, a last little finishing touches, if you will. I hope that was helpful, and I hope you're really enjoying getting some opportunity to get into Photoshop.